Retake on the intro. Hello everyone and welcome to State of the Realm, your weekly Final Fantasy XIV podcast. This week, well, when we did UCOB, we had like 8 shows on it, so this is like show number 2 on Ultimate Weapon. But this time we're going to be talking with some of the top tier rating groups that managed to clear in the first and third position for world ranking for Ultimate, and get their insight a little bit about the process and what they were thinking behind the scenes. But anyway, to do that show, we're going to need some people on it. So I'm one of your hosts, Michael, Mr. Happy Pope. Of course, joining me is Slyh, aka Slythefox, aka Slyh, aka Greyfox, aka Waffle House Raid Strats.
Why
Why not?
even go there?
Why not?
Why even go there? Why even fucking go there? Oh my god.
Slyh doesn't
Hi.
want to be on the show anymore.
Hi.
It's okay, Slyh. We'll get to hear plenty about that later. But anyway, he's nodding. He's shaking his head no. But of course, we need some of the people that managed to down the fight the fastest. So from the world first group, we have Zepp. How you doing, Zepp?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks for being here.
I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here.
I mean, thanks for.
That's how you know that it's still got you tired all these weeks later, huh?
I am.
That's okay. That's all right. I'm tired too. And from the world third group, from one of the best named statics is a Shaggy Fusion Ultra Instinct, which oddly enough,
AKA Mr. 20K.
AKA somehow that wasn't solely Fold's idea. We have Layla, AKA Klops. How you doing, dude?
Doing good, man. Always a pleasure to be on the show. Should be fun.
Glad to have you.
Always good to have you. Now, for anyone who's watching, we went through audio before the show started. We know that Klops' mic is a little bit lower. There's not really much way to raise it without it sounding like his computer is committing murder in at least 3 states.
I'm ruining the show.
So you're actually louder now. I feel like you edited it while we were waiting. So either that or you're speaking into the microphone, but just making you aware in advance that we are aware in advance. So thank you. I'm really glad that we could get both of you on the show today. I know it's a little bit later for you, especially Zepp.
I mean, it's fine, really. I used to read on an A, so I know the drill.
Oh, you and me, I don't know how either of you do. I go to sleep at 9:30. It's already past that for you, I'd imagine.
It's 1 a.m., just like...
Yeah, it's 1 a.m. It's 4 hours before I wake up in the morning. No problem.
I'm a night person.
All right.
I wouldn't run to any otherwise.
All right. Well, kudos to you because I can't do it. And then, of course, Slyh being here, hasn't cleared it yet, but has had some experiences.
Made Titan! Yay! Woo!
Hey, honestly, that's not bad considering that you're doing mostly Waffle House pugs. So making it to Titan woke is not bad at all in my book.
We can't even coherently wake.
Wake Titan?
Yes.
Listen, we're going to probably end up talking about the jails today, so I have a feeling you and a lot of other people are in the same boat, Slyh. Trust me. We don't even consistently wake Titans still, so... Those jails are the devil, Slyh.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, if at any point in the show, like, my mic starts echoing, just let me know.
Hey, Layla. Your mic might be echoing a little bit.
Okay. All right, I'll take care of that. You guys start. I'll take care of that.
All right. So
Okay.
this show is going to be mostly freeform, considering the stress that Ultimate Weapon created on those people who have been attempting to go through to it, especially to clear it. I figured that a freeform show talking about the progression of it was probably the Slyh. Just you don't apply. But anyway, Pugging is a different kind of stress. Okay, pugging is a different kind of stress. But we want mostly a freeform show talking about the progression of it. I'm gonna just ask Zepp, Layla a bunch of questions. Sly's gonna ask some questions. We're gonna laugh and cry maybe a little bit thinking back on some of the stuff, and hopefully we have a good time.
Still crying.
Excuse me. Couldn't hear that.
I'm still crying.
Still crying.
A little bit.
Still crying. Is that what you're drinking out of that glass? Are they your tears?
Yeah. Salty.
Salty is good.
Yeah.
A little sweet. Still hydrates you though. It's good. Yeah. All right. So without further ado, I don't know how long Layla is going to take to edit his thing. I told him to just leave it as is, and now he's trying to science that shit.
No, I'm good.
All right, there you go. Just making sure. So why don't we just get started right off the top? I'm gonna hit you with both of you with the $1 million question right off the bat, having both cleared it with both the first and third ranking in regards to the content. How do we feel about Ultimate Weapon when it all was said and done and passed, and you had time to think about it now for at least a week or so? How do you feel about the fight now, looking back, before we get into the specifics?
I think it's really, really awesome, the fight. It's for me personally, like, one of the best fights I've ever done, like, in this game. It's just brilliant how it's trolling the player.
Slyh feels the same way. He's like waking.
I think my initial opinion of the fight after, we're basically like a week plus removed from the first couple clears.
Yeah.
So, people have done their re-clears. And my opinion after, doing the re-clears and having a week and a half away to think about it, I would say that the solving of the fight and the mechanics was probably more difficult than UCOB, the Unending Coil. But the actual execution of the mechanics might be a little bit easier than UCOB. UCOB was a bit more of a draining experience, and I think it was a bit more punishing in some of the mechanics. A lot of them were just one-shot, raid wipes. I'm specifically referencing stuff like Twister and Grand Octet mishaps and stuff. Those things were super punishing, whereas the punishment factor of Ultima, you're really just looking at the Aether gauge, not letting the Aether gauge get too out of control. So, but the actual going through and solving of the mechanics, I thought was more difficult in Ultima. They were a bit more cryptic.
How do you feel about
that? Was going to be my.
That was going to be your question.
Yeah, and I'll throw it to Zepp. How do you feel UwU stacks up to UCOB?
I think solving it is I agree with Leda that it was harder than UCOB. Well, for UCOB I was doing ninth man stuff, like on the world prog. The thing about UwU is you rather dodge things. That's like the premise of the fight, while UCOB is rather throwing unavoidable damage at you most of the times, and you have to deal with it in some way. This is like kind of how I view these two fights. But yeah, I would say UCOB reaching Golden feels slightly better than reaching Ultima, but the end rage on Ultima just feels incredibly more satisfying than, and clearing it, of course, than anything in UCOB. Like, I think so many groups.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Like, if you listen to all of the clears, I think there has not a single clear where no one has been screaming. I think like every clear has screams in it. Everyone's like shouting, like, come on, clear it, come on, like, come on, all those dots, put it on. And it's just really cool to watch all these clears. And yeah, that's kind of how I view it.
Now, were you speaking from like an aesthetics point of view? Because when like I looked ahead, people already told me, like, you already told me how it looked, and I had to look ahead and like, oh my fucking God, this is like the best in Rage ever. And it just looking at it, it's an awesome feeling. I haven't been there yet. I can't wait to get there and scream too. But are you speaking from more of the aesthetics and how, that Enraged was done and how it looked compared to anything else we've ever done?
Yeah, like basically like how it looked and how it felt. Like I think I made a video about our first reaction. I don't know if you made that public, but we were all like screaming, oh, move into the circles. What is this? I'm standing, I got stunned, and then you like literally get obliterated from existence, and it was just so insane when you like first realize, holy shit, this is it.
I think the thing that makes the Enrage, a bit more special in this fight is because you're being dragged away one by one. We talked about how like every single clear, there's people screaming and yelling at their monitors. Like, as you're being dragged away, all you have to do for the next like 20 seconds while your team is still trying to kill the boss is all you can do is yell at your team. Do more damage, please kill it, please. That's all you can do for like 20 seconds.
Yeah, there was one clear of an EU group where the scholar was like screaming, please kill it, I don't want to do this anymore.
That is literally everybody at that point. He just vocalized what we were all thinking internally.
Yeah, she was almost crying, it felt like. Please kill it.
That's how I felt. I know that much. On our second one, I was like, I can't do this a second time. Please, just put it down. I can't handle another. I got up and left. I was like,
Yeah. Now imagine that kind of feeling when you're like, if you don't have the clear yet and you're like at 3%, you're like, I want to clear this, and then sleep deprivation comes in and you're like, fuck. And you have to go to sleep. Feels bad.
Going to sleep after something like that has got to be the most difficult thing anyone's ever done. Like, even if you're clearing it like a month from now, 2 months from now, having that be how your night ends and then going to sleep, not finishing it, has got to be a brutally just emotionally draining night, like a sleepless night.
Well, Zepp's team has experience with that from what I've heard, so you should ask him how they felt.
Yeah, it was like we were waiting about 13 or 14 hours at the time when we reached the Enrage the first time at like 27%. Then a couple pulls later we reached it again, then put it to like 10%. And at that point we usually stopped after 16 hours and we were like, okay, well, this needs a bit of background story. We were all like following Lader's team on Twitter. So we were reading like, Xaclair takes 990k damage, and there are like only 2 spots in the fight where you can take like 990k damage. And we're like, okay, they must be on average as well. Fuck. Like, and then we had to make the call.
Joke's on you guys.
Yeah. We had to make the call. Okay, are we gonna push now? Like, we can clear this night. Are we gonna make the push? And we decided to make the push. So we waited for 21 hours and we reached like 3% at that night, and then just didn't want to be it. So we had to go to bed. That feeling was like the bad feeling about it is not like that we're not clearing it in itself, but like you expect that other teams are on Enrage as well. So as you decide to go to bed, you're like, so this is like 50-50. Some other team might kill it while we sleep. So yeah.
I know even though I'm not doing, World Prog anymore, I know the very first thing every morning I checked when I woke up was front page of Reddit every day. Twitter, Reddit, that was the first thing, and you don't want to wake up and see that it's done before you've even had a chance to get warmed up for the day.
Yeah.
So I know that
takes the winds out of your sails, doesn't it?
And when I woke up, I checked Twitter, I checked Reddit, I was like, oh, did someone clear this? Please don't tell me someone cleared this. And then we went back in and I was like, yeah, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, I still know that feeling a little bit.
Now, in terms of just general, Prog, was there anything y'all did different now as opposed to when in UCOB? Did you, there were certain variations, there were certain ways you treated it a little bit different, like in terms of times and prep. Was there anything different that you did? All of you.
Well, speaking for my team personally, we obviously approached this much different than we approached UCOB because we actually had real experience with an ultimate encounter for this time around. Going to UCOB, I don't think any team in the world was fully prepared for what they threw at us. I think I speak for every single World Prog team, with the exception of maybe like one, that nobody was anticipating them to release a fight that was going to last more than a week. They had a previous track record of the 2 tiers right before UCOB being, kind of stomps, just pushovers. So we just expected it's going to be more of the same. And, I think people expected maybe it'll go a week, but not the, 11 days that it did. Obviously the big thing that you change is the amount of the amount of time you're expecting to spend progging. And now that you know, like, the pacing of Ultimate and the types of stuff that they throw at you in Ultimate, the damage values they like to throw at you, and also the length of the encounters they like to throw at you, you prepare entirely differently for that than you would say like a Savage tier.
What about you, Zepp? What was different? Because if I recall correctly, the first time you guys had off time from work, but it was only for less than a week, if I recall.
Oh, well, I wasn't actually in that team.
You weren't? Okay. Well, the team that did partake, I know they did that. I don't know if the entire FC approached it differently because of that.
Probably working with Delete Monk back then.
I was with Delete Monk back then, but I can at least say in Delete Monk we didn't expect it either. We thought, okay, it's gonna be like 3 days here probably, and then it's done. And then when it turned out like this, was oof. So it's definitely more about your mental state and how you approach it mentally. Like, I do have to say I was a little bit surprised, but they did mention it, how fast this fight actually was after all. If you look at UCOB, it's still relatively slow. Like, okay, you have a Twister cast on Twintania, you have a Fireball, you have some hatches, you have a New Link. Oh, it's all like it's more about like the mediocre coordination and like actually putting thought into it and doing it correct. But it's not like in UwU where it's like super fast and like Goetia does a slipstream and immediately after she does this tornado, the Mistress song, and then she jumps, Goetia feathers all coming at you. So the initial thought was really like, okay, this is fast.
I think the only time where I felt like Ultima, like the encounter, was too fast. Maybe I shouldn't say too fast, but was much more fast than UCOB was like specifically the suppression phase. I know that we had a conversation as a team when we were learning suppression and practicing the movements for suppression and stuff. That we commented that what they're expecting us to do here feels so much faster than every other part of the fight. Are we doing something wrong? Like, should it actually be this fast? That's like the one thing that really stood out to me in Prog is just how fast suppression was compared to anything in UCOB and compared to anything in the other bits of weapons refrain.
I also felt that way on the reprogging of Annihilation.
That third orb is real fast.
Yeah, exactly. When we did it the first time, we did 7-7-2-2, I believe. So for me as a range player, I had to go south, pick up the tether, and then sprint back immediately and get into that orb, and then go north, dodge this, dodge that. So that the first time we did it, it was like, okay, this is acceptable, it's doable. And then when you had to reprog it, it just felt satisfyingly fast, but it's still a lot of things going on at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up because I actually felt the same way watching Arya, our bard, do the range dance during Annihilation. I feel like the range player has the most movement during that Annihilation dance because you are ping ponging from one side of the map to the other side of the map in order to like do the safe spots cleanly. Yep. And I thought that was, when you're like planning out your movement for a phase, you're trying to think, well, what's intuitive, what's gonna what should the dance look like, and the bard and the range person, the person taking that tether just feels so out of place in that whole movement. It's so much more effort than everyone else is doing at that time. So kind of peculiar.
And the plan for it doesn't sound like it. It's like, okay, well, the person with the tether just run back towards Garuda and then come back to the team. It doesn't look anything like it's that's all they're doing because it's not.
Because at the same time you have on the sides you have Aphids charging and Titan doing landslides and Garuda feathers going out. Yeah. many things going on at the same time.
Yeah, I felt like comparing this, I guess, speed wise to UCOB. I don't know. I'm a melee DPS, so shit's easy. All right, that's that's the truth. We don't have. We're never the person to get assigned to shit like, you know, to what the ranged has to do in Annihilation. We're never the healer trying to survive all the damage or anything. We're never the tank worrying about the Our job is to kill the boss, and if there is something that comes at us, do it right. And it's like, so when I did UCOB, I don't know, I felt like UCOB was very straightforward. There's only like a few situations where I, as a melee DPS, felt like, okay, well, you know, this is intense. It's probably 10 strike and Grand Octet, I guess, were the only times I really felt that way. And then Exaflare is just Exaflare. Talk shit, get hit, I suppose. I'll never get hit by that. That's so easy. And then boom, boom, boom. One of them's gonna get you at some point. I don't know, as a melee DPS, I felt a lot more on edge because I felt like uptime was something they wanted to be a lot more key with Ultima overall. So even though the mechanics I don't necessarily think were that insanely more difficult or even easier or more difficult to execute, I like that they were testing how well you could do those things without giving you a break, which is something that they didn't really do with Bahamut all that much. You know, the point where you need the most DPS, they give you the least mechanics. The points where you don't, they kind of feed it to you in a way that's super digestible, I guess is the way I like to put it the most.
I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. Like, the more damage you push in Ultima, the easier life's going to be for you later. And they give you enough avenues, you know, in the phases compared to, say, Unending Coil, where you can squeeze out extra points of damage that you know, are going to benefit you later. And because of that, yeah, there are certain parts of UCOB where melee are just kind of, you know, AFK, watching their healers and tanks, hoping that they don't kill the raid. And at least in Ultima, during those points of time, you're at least working on, you know, pumping out as much damage as you can. So yeah, it's a plus.
That's what I liked about it. I was on edge the whole time.
Only bad thing about it is if you push too much, I really don't like that 50% push. I really don't like it.
I agree. You can totally just mess up your cooldowns for the final phase.
Man, so what happened to us with that is the first time we pushed it like way early. I think we pushed it before the homing missile. The summoner, after we wiped, we couldn't kill the jail, and afterwards the summoner went, I didn't have ether flow, pushed it too soon. I just didn't get to the cooldown again, and so there was a pain flare missing there.
I mean, that being said, though, like, you know, in the old days, you know, the concept of having to hold DPS to get a good push, you know, that was like a common thought process, right? You know, that wasn't so absurd. These days, like, you tell somebody to do that, and they're just going to leave your group. So I don't know. I mean, the option is still there to control your pushes. So I'm not going to complain too much about it. I think, you know, the most ideal time you want to push Ultima into suppression is you want to get an animation lock in the homing missile, because that's when you can burn the most. And you know, people are able to control their DPS and have that happen on a consistent basis. So I won't complain too much about it.
You want to talk about fights that were boring for melee DPS about DPS pushing? That'd be turn 7 Savage right on a silver platter. That's a big one as a melee DPS. That's just.
Yeah, I've made this joke on your show before, I think, but like the turn 7 for the melee, our monk used to joke about how there's this whole new world behind him that he's just not even aware of.
Yeah, you turn around and you see people kiting Renauds, and there's healers dealing with the poisons, and there's voices all over the place, and you're just like, oh wow, that looks cool.
This is here. Yeah.
I'm gonna hit this thing, but you guys look like that's fun.
You're having fun.
That's neat. I'll see you in turn 8 when I matter. All right.
Now you brought up this, like a lot of you brought up the speed of the fight, how it's generally faster than UCOB. And we knew before the devs even said that this was going to be a much faster fight in terms of, you know, overall time itself. With that, do you feel like with the fight design and anything else, do you feel like they kind of shoehorned anything in with the time itself that they had?
You mean like pushed it so fast that like they just shoved ideas in there to get it out?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not understanding. So you're asking did the fight feel rushed? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, was there anything that felt rushed in the fight?
I feel like they may have rushed development specifically of Garuda. When you go through UCOB, like there's different strategies to take care of the different mechanics, but it feels like they very carefully constructed exactly how they want you to do everything. With this, we had people finding out, waking Garuda early, waking Garuda late, all these different patterns for the chart. I feel like it was, maybe it was just by design less rigid, but specifically with waking up Garuda, it feels like something that I wouldn't expect them to miss after all these years. I feel like they're past the days of missing things like that, and yet it happened here like it used to happen in the old days.
The Garuda thing was a pretty glaring oversight. I'm kind of surprised that they let it happen. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but at the end of the day, it's in the grand scheme of the encounter, it's a pretty small oversight for like the larger effect on the fight. I think the bigger oversight, and I'm sure that most people would agree, is, and I don't know if this is a product of them rushing anything, it might be, but the fact that Crimson Cyclones in Predation, the second Crimson Cyclones deal half damage, allowed for, a very, very, very easy to execute cheese strategy where you just shield the damage. If those Crimson Cyclones did the same damage as the, single Crimson Cyclone that goes out before them, you don't have that strategy. So to me, that seemed like a pretty brainless oversight, and it's just them not having the foresight to see what was going to happen.
Speaking of which, we also considered completely mitigating landslide, since you can, if you don't take any damage, you also skip the knockback.
If you zero them out, same thing. Yeah.
And they do like 35,000, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think we've had the same conversation.
Yeah. Well, for me, after now a week after it, I do feel that the primals are a little bit underrepresented. I know that it's like approximately 8 minutes of the fight, and that Ultima is 6 minutes, but they feel a little bit too mini for me, like too small, too short. I would have loved more Ifrit, more Titan, especially more Titan. I think like a 5 minute Titan phase instead of like 2.5 what we have now, approximately, if you push it.
You're saying this with Woken primals, or just their regular forms, or both?
I guess the whole phase. Yeah, the
whole phase. Yeah.
Okay.
They're just like, I know that they come back later on, but you're not like actually fighting them individually.
Right.
Talking of which, an ad phase would have been really sick, where all 3 of them are on the field, but I guess they didn't want to do it.
I don't
kind
think
of reminiscent to Nail and
I think that's where they cut down the time. I feel like if there was no feedback about making the fight shorter, that's something they probably would have done. But that's probably, come on, LA. That's probably that's all right. Waiting for it. Come on, rush hour. There you go. I have a feeling that's where they cut back, was specifically in a phase where you fight everything at once. And I think we all predicted there would be like a phase where you actually exercise them out of Ultima, and that's instead represented at the end, where each of them kind of does their super attack as well as one mechanic, and they're not even exercised. He's just like, all right, well that didn't work, so here's Citadel Siege, assholes. So
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna repeat.
I think the thing that I was probably shocked by in terms of, but I understood because of the fight duration that they were trying to hit. I thought that La Habrea was a bit underrepresented. I was expecting there to be, a stronger emphasis on a phase between the 3 primals and Ultima. And I think before, people were data mining the patch and whatnot, I was expecting, sort of like you fight the 3 primals individually, and then you have a phase before Ultima where you fight all 3 of them on the same map. And then Ultima makes his entrance, and just like the cutscene in the story, takes them and bites Garuda's head off and stuff. So when I saw that La Habrea was the actual thing happening in the interim between the primals and Ultima, I was expecting a full fleshed out phase, but we just got some, a quick little 30-second cameo. So that was probably my surprise.
I mean, the only two things La Habrea did both were either instant kill or a million damage, so you'd think he'd maybe want to represent himself a little bit more going forward.
The original La Habrea didn't do anything either, though. That's the problem. They would have had to make up a bunch of abilities, give him a bunch of new mechanics that didn't exist previously. He really didn't do anything in the story.
He only did this shadow flare thing, that black puddle, and the cone knockback on the tank.
Yeah, and honestly, I forgot that I'm gonna guess you went in there before this happened, before this came out, because I don't know how you remember that. In all honesty, after 5 years.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just doing a lot of main story relaps.
We took our entire static through Praetoria.
See, that makes sense.
I have many story mode recordings.
That's unfortunate. That's.
Oh yeah. Talking of which, I'm really sad those match tech bits didn't come back.
I was really glad they did. I hate those things.
I mean, looking at the story mode Ultima and the hard mode, those dances with the match tech bits that they could have done at least. Oh my god, that would have been amazing.
We were expecting untargetable bits that would just persist throughout the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I could totally imagine a ton of stuff. I don't know that it necessarily would, because when I think of the Magitech bits, I think more of Gaius's involvement, because Ultima is not Magitech. Ultima is Allegan, whereas Magitech is Garlean technology. So what him using it always seemed more of a Gaius thing to me, and Gaius isn't represented here at all. So the fact that they were present, period, kind of just felt like a callback to the old Ultimas and less of a, this is something we're going to use a lot. And same with Etheric Boom later. In hard mode, Etheric Boom is something he constantly does. He does it 3 times, 50, 30, and 15% or something like that. Here he just gives you the one pattern and then makes it involved in annihilation from the entire time. So I feel like it was just about making us see the familiar aspects of Ultima, but that without overplaying the ones that I guess aren't really that thematically difficult. That's how it felt to me with the bit. I didn't care seeing the bits. When I saw Predation the first time, I saw everything on the screen. I went, okay.
Yeah, same.
There's a lot of things. I've never seen, speaking of Predation, I've never seen a funnier image for a guide before than the text guide.
I saw the picture floating around Twitter. Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, of all the possible patterns and how to recognize each safe spot. And it's just you just have all these overlapping, and then it's just see that? See that little tiny thing? It's off to this. That's the safe spot. Perfect.
Dude, just eat the charge, lol.
I gotta say, the first time I was rewatching our Prog, and the first time we saw it, it was just maniacal laughter. Holy shit, there's this and there's that. What are we doing? And then everything going on at the same time. You just heard people laugh. It was just crazy. And then funny story, we had no clue after we figured out that the landslide is not baitable. We had no clue how to do this, so we were okay, listen, we just hyper mitigate. We just put a big Adlo on everyone, and then everyone just does something. Just do something. Someone's gonna figure something out.
Well, what was funny is I started memorizing each and every pattern and where the safe spot was, and there's one where there's
Poor soul.
What I found to be the most annoying pattern was when Garuda, Ifrit, and Ultima were all in a line, and Garuda's close to Ifrit, because then you have to. I found the safest spot was to be inside of the Wicked Cyclone, in the area where Ifrit charged from, because there just wasn't really much of a landslide. And everyone's that's fucking stupid. That's never going to work. So I was all right, you guys do it the way you think's going to work. I'm going to do it my way. I fucking lived. They all died.
In fact, in that arrangement, it actually is it is very discernible where the safe zone is going to be in that specific arrangement. And this is something that, we kind of practice in Prog. We had a similar situation what Zeppe was describing where, they just had people you probably had a bunch of conflicting ideas, and everybody fan out, do your own thing. If you live, tell us how you live, that kind of thing. And
I
was just going to say that in the, the one thing that I was really adamant about testing, because we had, people with really strong opinions about that predation. Finally, we just said, look, You guys do it your way. You guys do it your way. Whichever way works better, we'll see. And the way that I was really like set on is using Garuda's back, and using Garuda's back to find the safe zone. And depending on the way the Titan's landslide goes through Garuda, if you have one going directly through Garuda, that meant directly behind Garuda's back was always going to be safe. If you had like two going to the sides of Garuda, that meant Garuda's wings are always going to be safe. And for every arrangement but one, that was working. So I was like really, really stoked because I thought we had figured it out. And then there's one really bad arrangement where it just totally does not work. So that's when we just started shielding.
Yeah, we also had like multiple ideas at the same time. Like some people were saying, okay, like maybe we should just stand behind Garuda and then mitigate the landslide. Some others were saying, okay, maybe you should just stand in front of Titan, mitigate the landslide. Some others were like, okay, maybe you should stand on Ifrit or like outrange the Dynamo, which was like, after all, like that was the correct solution. But we just also tried many things and then, went with it.
Yeah, Predation was probably the most fun to figure out just because it's literally just you're trying to avoid getting hit once. Unless you're doing the Crimson Cyclone strat. And just when it's all on the screen at once, it just doesn't look possible for the most part. I don't think I've ever seen anything that's looked as impossible on my screen for so many hours as getting all 8 people through Predation alive. And even every time even once we have it figured out, we're doing this Crimson Cyclone mitigate thing, I'm still thinking to myself the whole time, like, this could go really poorly very quickly. Just looking around at everything. Like someone's too close to Ultima, someone gets hit by an Ifrit charge because they didn't realize where he was, like anything.
I feel like the cheese strat would be okay if it would increase the ether gauge by 1 every time a person gets hit by something in that phase.
That's I think that's a good solution.
That would actually be nice. So you could choose to cheese it, but ultimately mean that you have a tighter DPS check. I think that would have been nice.
I always just try. I kind of try to survive it now, but I also don't want to be the one idiot who got hit trying to be the hero, and then we're down 2 seconds at the end of the fight. So
yeah.
I look around and go, all right, am I conforming or not? I'm conforming. Got it. All right. I don't like being hit. And besides, at this point, the only way to get a lower execution rating is to not get hit there or to crit adlo the whole thing. So I kind of want to not get hit there.
Oh, it's all about the execution ranking, man.
Yo, listen, we got the top execution ranking. That's all we're gonna get. That's our claim to fame. Nobody died to Citadel seats. Or
I'll tell you what, man. I'll tell you what. You can have it.
Just bring an Astro. You won't even make it you won't even see Citadel Siege. You just bring an Astro. Like after having enough experience. That's it. Just bring an Astro. You won't even get to fucking 100 ether with that. I'm confident.
I mean, with good pulls from everyone, I think maybe not regardless of comp, but I think a wide variety of comps can skip the stuns if you have a good pull from everyone at this point. I don't know. That's the enraged discussion is probably the topic for a later time in the show. But
yeah, like I said, we're just bouncing around. It's free form. After the stress that was Ultima, the last thing we need is a fucking super strict show about anything. I don't want it. I don't want it.
Okay, so since we don't have really a design like flow or anything, even though we do kind of have a flow.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this real quick because I've already talked about it with Mike, but in the beginning, the first day of Prog, how did y'all feel when you knew that y'all were doing it wrong, aka doing it right?
Fucking bamboozled.
I think we were all we were all like, what the fuck? Oh look, she's broken. Oh wait, this is good. There's something new going on. Wait, there's a tornado? There's a dynamo? What the fuck? So yeah, that was the first reaction on Garuda, at least. I think the troll was really well made because you need to consider, even though you get the Doom and you kind of know what a Doom does if you play this game, and you're like, okay, we need to cleanse it in some way. but it's actually not a cleansable debuff. So, okay, there's got to be another mechanic behind it. And the troll that I don't see being mentioned a lot of times, but you need to remember it. The cast before it, the down to the count thing, it drops your HP to 1. And so far in this game, every time when your HP gets dropped to 1, it means either be full HP before or be full HP after. So there's like it's just a really good troll how the designer used mechanics from previous raids and just completely flipped this to lead us like somewhere else. Like we were all thinking, okay, so maybe we need to heal us up, top us off in those 7 seconds. Didn't work. And then you're like, okay, what now? And then like you try all kind of things, like maybe you stand at the edge of the arena, maybe walk into the wall, maybe don't look at him.
Walking to the wall is my favorite one. It's like, yeah, just if you're dead, then it can't kill you, right?
So I have a counterpoint to that because, and we know, now that it is possible to top up without the healer LB in between the down for the count and the doom. I think Zeppe's team even did that. We didn't actually ever get to trying that, but it was something we talked about. But it is possible to fully heal with enough healing cooldowns. And I'm wondering if it didn't even go that far, and they actually didn't anticipate players to be able to heal up in between the down for the count and the doom. So maybe on their end, them dropping you to 1 HP is supposed to incite healer LB to the players. Maybe they were trying to give the hint of, hey, your HP is really low. You really need a healer LB at this point. I'm wondering if they didn't expect players to be able to heal up and even consider that as a possibility.
Yeah, maybe it was their way of thinking this. What we also tried was like, what if you hyper mitigate this so you take 0 damage so that the debuff is not applied. That's what we also tried, but didn't work. So yeah.
Went through all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, like in order to test all those things, you didn't really have to awaken all the primals. You just unless you were testing the healer LB, you just need to get there. And getting through the unawakened primals wasn't necessarily difficult. So that was the only fortunate thing about it.
The last solution before we scrapped the entire idea and then went ahead and tried to overcharge the primals, it was send 1 healer into the wall, give them a res, let the match attack bits explode as the healer is rezzing.
See if you can avoid the doom.
Yeah. Rest the next healer as the first healer who just got rest accepts, like, is rezzing, right? And he's getting the doom. Rest the next healer. Then healer AB. And maybe that was the way how they wanted us to do it. And,
there's just no way that they would design that as the mechanic, though.
Yeah.
But the wall instant kills you. Listen, I was streaming the whole thing, and the number of times I read, have you tried killing the healer and rezzing them so that way they don't have to... The number of times I read that, I was like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like, it's just, everyone was just obsessed with that being the idea. I was like, that's not gonna be it. This was before we knew about Woken.
So good on paper.
No, it doesn't, though.
It does. Like, when you really think, like, as he was explaining, I'm like, that actually under normal circumstances would work.
No, I mean, yeah, it would work under a normal circumstance, but it's not. They've never designed something to be done that way on purpose.
I mean,
after this, I'm gonna expect anything in the future, at least.
That's true. It's true. You actually have to expect the crazy at this point.
Yeah. The cool thing about this fight in general is in Savage or in UCOP, whenever there is some sort of patterns or RNG, or like whether, let's say, like when there's some sort of RNG, you always wonder, is there some pattern behind this? Is there some logic behind it? And most of the times, it's just plain simple RNG. For example, the demonic stone in 06S, for example, like you were like, okay, maybe this is enmity base, Like maybe this is that. Maybe you have to stand close to the clone. And after all this time, it's just RNG. That's it. And in this fight, behind everything, there's logic. And this is what I really love about the fight. And going forward, I would love if they continue this, putting logic behind everything.
The one takeaway you can have from this fight, with the exception of the Garuda and predation oversights, is that everything exists for a reason in the fight. There's very, very little that they I guess overlooked in terms of mechanics. The big one that stood out to me the most is the purple tethers in Annihilation. The first time you're going through Annihilation, they're very peculiar because they don't really do anything. They don't tell you anything. For all you know, the first time you're going through Annihilation is they just tell you that you suck and you got hit by an orb. And that's literally what we left Annihilation doing suppression prog, thinking that purple tethers just tell you who sucks. And maybe they're a visual indicator to determine like how much AP you gave them or something. But you can't take that approach. You can't be that lazy. You have to dig deeper and really, really, really break down why something is there now. Everything is there for a reason. I think the Garuda oversight is really the only thing you can say that isn't there for a reason.
And man, I remember for me, other than figuring out the orb and Annihilation, which we didn't even know until we saw a kill video because we still hadn't really made it through suppression without being 2 people alive and the orb spawning. At least we know how to do that because it's the same as hard mode. And then you just realize, no, you don't. You're a fucking idiot. Like, shut the fuck up. You have no idea.
In terms of the Annihilation orbs, our first thought, as one of the tanks got hit because they flew at them. Okay, when there's a tether, it indicates who it's gonna target next. That was our first thought, wasn't it? And then we later on just dodged them, but apparently some people didn't dodge them, which is, ironically speaking, good that they did not dodge them. because people didn't dodge the mechanic and at the time thinking they failed, only because you're thinking them failing, you're actually able to figure out the mechanic. Because when we reached Fusion Burst, we were like, okay, the first time we saw 0 tethers. Second time, we saw a mini tether. Third time, we saw a 2 long tether and a mini tether. And then we had like all sorts of theories like, okay, we need to get pushed right through the center of them to like knock them away from each other. Then one other approach was, okay, 4 quadrants, A2 players, and then you get pushed into that quadrant, the orb gets linked to the player, and then you have to pull them apart as you walk away from each other.
We didn't go that far, yeah.
Okay.
I can see the whiteboard behind you.
Yeah. There was one thought. And then the final thought was, okay, maybe if you pull the boss north, like just further into the outside of the arena, the orbs away from Ultima, these spawns further away from each other. That was the final thought. Until, okay, hold on. Is it those fucking etheroplasms from Annihilation? Oh, it's actually them. That was just like, you totally did not expect such a big troll so late into the fight. And it was just really good as well.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of that. I remember first figuring out how to wake Garuda, right? Regardless of which method you did it, and using the thermal low stacks. You then think back to UCOB and about how Twintanya and Nail were there and their mechanics are there, and you notice that there's still a bunch of people with thermal low. And when we were first doing it, we just had everyone stack up for 2, and the people who needed to feed fed. So when we were doing that, I'm like, we're gonna pay for this later, aren't we? Like, we're not going to be able to bring 2 stacks of thermal low per person into Ultima. Something's going to go wrong. And then the first time you see the meso high tether, you're like, All right, that's it. Back to Garuda, guys. We got to change it up. We got to figure out what we're doing different. And
I guess.
No, keep going. Go.
I guess that's another slight oversight, you could call it. That at the end of the fight, you still have. I think we have 2 melees that still have 2 stacks, and
the meso high tethers like didn't add up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it adds up to. I guess I'm trying to think of what they would have intended, because clearly you need 4 people. I'm assuming what they thought is you need 4 people to do the 2 stack, and then you need 3 people in the later phase. But that's not 8. Like, then why? I don't know. Maybe they just didn't think the main tank.
I can't think. What I should have, but I would have done, to force the players to do the mechanic completely to the edge, like absolutely complete. Like, no player finishes this fight with a stack. When Goetia spawns in the final phase, she also, or like, also the Spiny Plume spawns, or like just the this bubble where you get the wind buff. This bubble should have spawned, and this should have been the only way to mitigate her final AV. So if you walk into that with 2 stacks, you would have literally obliterated your group. So you could only walk into this bubble if you had no stacks to mitigate the AV.
I wonder if they left it open just for sake of flexibility, like in case something went wrong and you needed another person to do it, as opposed to asking for absolute perfection. Because that's kind of the thing with Ultima. There's a lot of parts where someone can die and you can pick it back up, but when you get to that final push, that's where you pay for it, more so than any other place. So I'm wondering if leaving options open like this, like, we have the predation oversight, we have the thermal lows ending with the more stacks still left over in people. I wonder if that's part of that, because knowing that, if you have those extra people with extra whatever, if they need to cover for something, you're going to pay for it one way or the other, because it probably means you made a mistake elsewhere. That entire last 6 minutes is pretty brutal.
There's a couple ways they could have ended like the fight with 0 stacks on people.
Oh, there's plenty of ways they could have done it. They have complete control over how many stacks go out to the group.
I'm trying to think. It's a little bit hard to like kind of map it out in my head, but I'm wondering if they actually just took away the 2 stacks that Spiny Plume gives at the beginning of the fight. I'm wondering if that actually forces you, because you have to cleanse the additional player there. You'll get hit by the frictions, obviously. You'd have to send in at least 3 of the 5 players there. They got 2 stacked by the friction, and that would leave you with 5 players left to finish the fight. And I'm trying to map out the fight in my head and see if that works. You'd have the 2 meso high tethers. Yeah, I think it actually does, because then you have the 2 meso high tethers from the ending of the phase, and then you have the 2 in annihilation, and then the 1 during suppression.
Actually,
yeah, go ahead.
I think the way how they actually wanted us to do it is that you kill the Spiny Plume before it gives 2 stacks to the tank, so he only has 1. And then with those 2 stacks from the melees, you could awaken her early. If you couldn't awake her later on.
Well, the thing is, the sooner you kill the Spiny, the less time you have. Like, you barely have any time after friction. Like, getting the 2 stacks on the off tank is barely even like, oh, we need to do this to make sure we wake her early. It's like, if you don't kill it that late after the second stack goes out, then
that's true. The timing of the your cleansing window actually doesn't work if you have to wait until the Spiny, like if you kill it so fast that the tank doesn't get any stacks. So I really just feel like, unless I'm crazy, if you just take away the stacks that the Spiny Plume gives to the tank, it just kind of works out. But I don't know. I could be wrong about thinking about it.
Yeah, it's weird all the way. I think that they wanted a little bit of flexibility there. I think that's all it is. I don't think they wanted that one to be executed down to the T, because everything else you need to do needs to be down to the T anyway. Worrying about you carrying a stack over from the beginning, they just want to make sure you have enough. Not that, know. What's up, Slyh?
Doesn't this go back to, set up early on? Kind of like what UCOB had. It was like you set yourself up for failure if you fucked up a fucking
the Neurolinks.
Neuralink, yeah.
Neurolinks weren't nearly like moving a Neuralink isn't quite the same as I feel repositioning those thermal lows or or something, or going back and comparing it to Annihilation with the orb. I feel like putting those down, it's like, all right, well, we didn't move the boss enough, or we just need to move it a little bit more, or whatever. It doesn't.
Right.
And with the way the fight naturally pans out, with the way the hatches explode and everything, you kind of get an idea of the way you want them anyway. Like, immediately, almost every group I know immediately made a triangle without even thinking about it. Like, and it just ended up being like, where do we want this triangle exactly? So
this is an interesting point that was just brought up in chat that I think actually holds a lot of water. Because of the fact that they were clearly wanting us to awaken Goetia early, right? You need enough time to get all 4 stacks in. And in order to do that, you're going to need to leave your Spiny Plume up for quite a bit longer than, maybe most groups are right now. I think most groups are killing the Spiny, only allowing time for 3 stacks right now. I know that the way that we do the fight, there's no way we could get a fourth stack with the Spiny Plume dying where we're killing it. Leaving the Spiny Plume alive long enough to where the tank actually does go up to 3 stacks, that would mean that tank is eliminated from it taking any Meso highs later. But if you remove that tank from the rotation, that's every player having interacted with Meso high throughout the fight, and that might actually be what they wanted us to do. That one tank at the beginning holds the Spiny Plume so long that he completely removes himself from the rotation, and then you're only interacting with the remaining 7 players for the rest of the fight. And I think that actually finishes the fight with 0 stacks.
So the only concern with that is if they intended you to wake her up early, you'd need to throw 4 people into that orb early on.
Correct.
Which leaves you
and in order to do that, you have to leave the Spiny up long enough to be able to go after the frictions. I think that's actually probably what they were thinking.
Here's the problem with that. With those 4 people getting rid of their stacks, they have more ways to get stacks, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Two more people lose their stacks at the end of the Garuda phase. That's already 6 people gone. There's only 1 left.
Oh, let me see.
Oh, okay.
4. Yeah, you'd have 3.
You'd only have 1 person by the time you got done with Garuda.
Yeah.
Well, you can throw an ultimate on.
That's assuming you don't blow at least 1 person up with a 2 stack at the other part. Even if you blew up 1 person with a 2 stack, if you went 3, 2, 3, that's still 8.
You could blow up a person with 0 stacks and use an ultimate.
You could do that.
With the tank.
You could do that technically, but all the same,
And you're still missing. Yeah.
I feel like no matter how you work it out, none of it seems to be the intended route.
I think that's fair. Yeah. The way the situation I was describing doesn't work. You're right.
Yeah.
It's something interesting to think about. I do kind of want to try to figure out what they were really wanting us to do there, because they've already gone on record saying, just for anybody who's listening who's unaware, the reason we're even talking about this is because they have specifically said in an interview that it was an unintended method for us to awaken Goetia as late as possible. So I'm just really curious to sort of wrap my brain around what they actually intended us to do there.
Sit down and have a talk.
First of all, I'm wondering, the Super Cyclone during suppression causes the Feather Lancers to die, right?
Correct, yeah.
Does that also happen if you awake Goetia early? Does that happen on those Feather Lancers as well? Because we never really tried it. We only had tank ultimates at the time.
To my knowledge, I haven't spent a ton of time with an early woken Goetia, but from what I saw, the Feather Lancers just they zip to the middle and they just explode in the middle.
There's
nothing else to interact there, unless Oh no, I guess
they create a safe zone, and then you have to. Well, there's 2 ways to do it. Either you at least what we did. Either you stand in that safe zone that they create in the center, or as they move in, you move out. It's kind of like the tornado with radiant plumes and before suppression. But I've been wondering if you do the Super Cyclone correctly there, if that actually causes the Feather Lancers to drop as well.
So the only way to get a Super Cyclone there would be to have a Spiny Plume bubble, right? Because there's no Meso highs interacting there, right? At that point,
isn't that one just before?
So I'm done a full Garuda Feather Lance phase.
Okay, but educate us, please.
So they actually don't spawn in a perfect square/diamond pattern in the early phase. They spawn in a trapezoid pattern, almost like Ifrit's nail. So that actually is a safe spot.
Yeah.
So they go to the middle regardless of how you handle those Super Cyclones, because they explode. They explode. We got shit on pretty hard when we tried doing it. So It was not a good time. In other words, nothing about Garuda's phase makes sense, and we probably won't make sense of it. I'm just saying. That's how I feel about it. I don't know about you guys.
I'm just going through all these different cleansing scenarios in my head, just trying to map things out. I'm just lost in cleanses right now.
That's gonna make a great topic for one of your podcasts.
Maybe.
Call it the thermal low.
That'd be a pretty good episode. Just the 2 hours dedicated to thermal load and like.
just get one of those digital whiteboards and just start drawing out the way you think. Maybe
Man, that would be a hard 2 hours to fill, dude. I could go for maybe 20 minutes and then I'd be out of ideas.
I don't know. I feel like we're going pretty good so far. Just take this audio and you'll be good to go. I know the whole topic of this is talking about how, I guess, they troll you. I don't know. For me, while the Annihilation Orb was probably at the top and the Thermal Lows thing was like, we were sure we were going to get screwed. I remember figuring out that the Ifrit Nails death order affected the charges was a pretty big point where we were just
You fucked me up with that one, fam.
I looked at the way they were laid out and I looked back at the nails. I looked at the way they were laid out, looked back at the nails. I went, no, they didn't. That can't be it. That's bullshit. Sure enough, guys killed them in this exact order. Go to the clip. Oh no, the sons of bitches. And then Woken Ifrit's his own deal. He just does whatever the fuck he wants. Just get good at the game, I guess.
I feel like with the way that, I mean, if you go through that phase, kind of YOLOing the nails and just making sure that you don't, kill them too close to each other. The way that the dashes are presented, there are some formations that are just like nearly impossible to live. There's like very little else in that phase for you to look at, right? It's just the only other thing you can really look at is nails. So I think that that's like the one thing that, while, was a really cool interaction, it's the one thing that like you could draw a pretty intuitive connection with. Like the Titan thing was not intuitive in the slightest, I feel. With the Titan Jills, sort of chain reacting off each other, the only way you catch that is if you just happen to see it in a VOD. Like you happen to see one of the Jills exploding, early, and the fact that it exploded and you didn't even touch it. That to me is much less intuitive than like something that they designed for the nails.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry, I keep muting my mic on the live stream because I got a very urgent email that I'm dealing with in between my thoughts. So my apologies if it looks like I'm zoning out. But yeah, I don't know. It's just elements like that. I think it just felt, the whole fight just felt like it was such a well put together troll. Like they wanted you to just think you were so fucking smart. Like, yeah, we got through Garuda, we got through Ifrit, we got through Titan. We're already here. This shit's gonna be dead today. Reality check. Slow your roll.
That was actually our thought as well. We were like, already 9 minutes in. Can this be real?
Yeah, dude, this ultimate phase must be really fucking hard. If only I could reach it. I keep dying to this doom. I don't know what's going on.
I think absolutely no one expected Ultima to immediately transition into the new form. I think no one in the world did. That was kind of cool.
I think it fits pretty well though, because eventually when you realize, I mean, if he's gonna absorb woken primals, he's gonna be woken. Like he's gonna be woken fast.
Oh, yeah.
And it fits in the sense that basically the whole Ultima phase is the equivalent of the Golden Bahamut phase, where you are with Golden Bahamut, that's the first time where you're really on the clock for, get to business because you're running out of time. With Ultima, that's his whole phase. It's basically a giant Golden Bahamut phase, but it's asking you to be perfect for 6 minutes instead of 3, approximately. And I feel like it's very fitting for him to transform that quickly, especially how he looks by the time he actually gets to Citadel Siege.
I am. We were actually wondering the entire fight as well. What happens when the ether gauge goes to 100? First time we saw it was on a fucked up suppression, and then we saw like, oh, the arena changes. What the fuck is this? He gets a damage buff. What is this? What's going on? And then our first reaction was, okay, so is this just a damage buff? Is this it? Like, just a damage buff? No way. Yeah, big troll at the end. Citadel Siege.
So I don't like. So obviously the fight got data mined all hell, just as every other fight in this game does. Spoiler, if you're unaware. And there's a buff called True Self. I don't know where that exists in the patch, but it had an icon that looked very Heidelin like. So when we went in the fight, we were expecting the buff True Self to make an appearance and just be another golden style buff. And when we first saw the damage buff from Ultima and stuff, we just assumed, okay, well, we're gonna get True Self at some point, and our True Self buff is gonna counteract the buff that Ultima gets, and it's just gonna be a brawl. But I think it actually is an ability from a different scenario.
Yeah, that True Self was already in 4.2, I think, or 4.3.
Yeah, I think just misinformation on our part, but seeing the blue room for the first time was, and most people probably saw it kind of early, because if you're messing up Annihilation Suppression quite a bit, it's not necessarily too difficult to get to 100 gauge.
I think we got there with a healer LB, and then the Ultima cast right after killed everyone off again, which is where we saw like 100 ether gauge, and was like, ooh.
What's great about the ether gauge is a lot of people had a question about the ability named Sabik. And for anyone who doesn't know, it's actually the name of the finale of Citadel Siege, where he actually wipes out all existence. I don't know if you noticed, but the entire arena is inside of a Citadel Siege. As he forms ether, the same shell that he like consumes people in Citadel Sieges, that little tiny like ball thing, is actually what the entire arena is around. So I have a feeling that you're inside the heart of Sabik in some way, and that you're inside of this giant. That's why he can just absorb you. He's just like, well, you're already fucking here, so come on. Get in here. Get in here. Just a fun little detail that I felt like throwing in there. There's a lot of things I think we had expectations for this fight, and I think that's why UCOB ended up being 20 minutes, because they just let those ideas go rampant. And this one was a little bit more in check. Like, all right, it's rated in only 16 minutes this time, guys. Only 16.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they hadn't told us how long this fight would be.
Well, they just said shorter. They never told us that it would be 16.
They said a few minutes shorter.
Yeah.
And I looked at like the average clear times of UCOB. It was approximately 19 minutes, 18 and a half. So a few minutes, can't be just one, probably 2, 3. And then I think it kind of, you always go whenever you reach a new phase, you are always like, okay, it's probably going to be around 16 minutes. So you kind of look how far you are away from it. And I think they shouldn't have told us. It would have been more of a surprise, the ending, at least. And I think it should have been longer.
Would you have been disappointed, though, had they not given you the heads up?
I think I would have been disappointed, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's. I think they were covering their ass.
Mm-hmm. I think this fight could actually have been longer. I'm not sure how other people feel about it.
Oh, but I think when you ask that question, the only other question you can think of is, what did they leave out? Like, seriously, what did, in terms of just not only the primals but Ultima himself, was there anything that you missed that was in the original fights that maybe could have had a twist on it in Ultimate that they could have added for, time padding, I guess?
I mean, as I said earlier, I think like an ad phase would have been cool. Like, where they actually where you have to kill them off each of one of them. I was expecting an ad phase where the ad phase where, like, similar to UCOB, where they spawn again with lower HP. I was expecting that as well. And as you kill them, Ultima jumps in, absorbs them, and jumps out again. I was expecting that. Would have been cool if the order in which like you feed Ultima the primals would have changed anything. But that would have been cool as well.
Yeah. That would have made it like the greatest encounter of any game ever, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me almost of turn 2, killing them in the right order to affect the way the final boss actually attacks you and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Except for the Allegan Rock guy they hid in the back. That guy's an asshole. Nobody likes him. Wasn't worth it anyway. For that, I think really the ad phase is the one thing. Like I said earlier, Magitech bits. Yeah, I affiliate them with the Ultima fight, but they're way more on the Gaius spectrum of involvement and way less on the Ultima spectrum because of the difference in technology. I mean, the airships even they only use the airships once. You know, that's another thing. Yeah. And I don't know, like proximity AoEs I don't find proximity AoEs that interesting, personally. Mm-hmm. It'd be really weird for one of those things to come crashing down in that arena in particular. just my 2 cents. We would have had to have made it like if it was everything I could imagine, it would be like a 28-minute fight. So that's why I don't do these.
And that's a loaded question. Would you really want that long of a fight? No. Yes, it's an ultimate encounter. And while some people do want a longer fight, would you want one that long? Seriously?
Well, what I've been thinking, do we really need that long of an RP phase?
That RP phase is really long.
It's really long, especially if you add up the time with La Habrea. I think let's pretend the fight was 18 minutes, right? So we add 2 more minutes on top, and then we make the RP phase instead of RP where you cannot fight and have no mechanics happening, a phase where you have minor mechanics happening at the same time and where you're actually still fighting. Let's say you kill Goetia off and Ultima spawns and does the cutscene where he eats Goetia. Meanwhile, you're still fighting Titan and Nephid. Something like this.
See, I had a feeling before the fight came out, I thought he was going to eat each primal as you beat them. I did think that was going to happen, something akin to that. And then I figured that when they were being expelled would be when you'd have your ad phase. I figured you'd have Ultima on the field the whole time, but that like one by one, almost A8 Savage style, where the first part is on a timer for each of the ads coming down. Like that's how I imagined it happening. I didn't know in my brain I didn't know how to get from that to a super Ultima, but I guess with super Ultima right from the get-go would have made a little more sense, but I guess if he loses them, he's not super Ultima anymore, so that's why they didn't actually ever have him expel all the primals, because then he has no ether anymore and he's just the pathetic one that we've been fighting.
Yeah, that's actually what we've been expecting as well, that we're gonna punch the primals out of him again. Didn't happen.
I mean, that was a pretty iconic part of the original Ultima. So, they do try to pay homage to the more iconic parts of these fights. I wouldn't say I was disappointed that I didn't see it, but I was surprised that we didn't see it.
I was surprised. Yeah, I was pretty surprised. I feel like there was definitely more elements that could have drawn it, but man, it just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. It just keeps getting longer. The fight. Every time I think of something they could have done, and the fight, it's not like no, take this other thing away. I'm like, no, yeah, the fight just gets longer if they do that, and that's why the first fight was 20 minutes. That's why 19 minutes more accurately for UConn. That's why it ended up that way, because they just let that happen. They said, yeah, fuck it. What ideas do you guys got? Come on, what are the best ones? We'll throw them all in.
If they take away the RP phase in Ultima, though, it becomes a Savage encounter. Like it's a 14.5-minute fight at that point. That's a Savage end boss. That's a manipulator. That's a Bahamut Prime. I think that for all intents and purposes, you can call both weapons Ultima Weapons length Savage length, because in RP phase it's just an artificial lengthener.
Yeah.
I would probably have preferred if they were going to go. So they have that there to obviously have that there to normalize your cooldowns. It's a 90-second difference between Titan dying and ultimate weapon spawning. That normalizes your 90-second cooldowns. It gives you time to orchestrate your 3 minutes to line up. If they're gonna go that route, what I would have preferred, and I'm trying, we are being critical of the fight, but we should also remind people listening that this was a really good fight, and we all really love this fight. But if I were to be critical, if you're gonna do an RP phase like that, don't let us just be AFK for it. If you want us to reset our cooldowns and sort of get everything normalized again, have an intermission dance going on. Make us be actively doing something, because I don't think I'm the only one that literally went to my fridge and got a drink and a soda during the RP phase. Like, I'm pretty sure someone in my static used the restroom once during the RP phase. It's that long, and you literally don't have to be at your keyboard for it. And I feel like if I was going to be critical of something, I want to be critical of that.
It's extremely long, but on the other hand, the quote-unquote intermissions between Goetia, Ifrit, and Titan are really short. So I think what they kind of expected was, okay, we just throw Goetia, Titan, Ifrit at them really quickly, so they have no time to give no breather at all, and then in that intermission give them a breather, let them chill for a bit, and then throw ultimate them, which is fine. But
I think I'd have no problem with the breather if the breather didn't mean the fight was only a 14.5 minute fight.
Yeah, same. That's why I said maybe add 2 more minutes on top, which would have been fine.
2 more minutes probably before the breather also, because then you have the 6 minutes of chaos following the intermission, where you really need to be focused for ultimate weapon compared to the primals.
That was the part that for me was the most stressful. Just all of Ultima, just constantly every mechanic that goes out. I don't know about you guys. I just looked at my party list and I was like, come on. No, don't die. Don't die.
Typical melee, dude.
Don't die.
Ow.
Well, every time I look away from it, I look back and then I'm disappointed.
Doesn't interact with anything, has no responsibilities. Oh, I hope my team lives.
I'm pressing the buttons. I'm just looking at the team. I like every
He's
time.
backup Astro in general, anyway. So
it's just I just look at it and I'm just like, I'm in the middle of annihilation. I'm like, okay, hitting the boss. Okay, move for Ifrit. Okay, make sure to get by landslide. Move in for that. Don't get too close to the orb. And I'm just looking at the health bar the whole time, like, don't fucking die. Don't fucking die. That's just the whole time the only thing I'm ever looking at. Because the rest of it's just like, all right, buttons. That's it. I remember the one time I looked away, our fucking tank died to an auto attack right before the Enrage cast started.
Here we go.
I looked away and then I looked back and I was like, okay, this is the one. I was super excited. I looked back, it's like, he's fucking dead?
Why do you have healer complaints?
I didn't say it was the healer. He just died. I didn't expect it.
No, I'm just saying you have healer complaints.
That's not a healer complaint. I didn't expect him to be fucking dead to an auto attack that did 35,000 damage complaint.
Yeah, this shit, like, if you're not raid lead, I would expect this shit from either raid lead or healer. You're melee.
Yeah.
I don't expect it.
So I get sad when other people die. That's
right.
Melee's job. I hit the boss and I get sad when other people die. That's it. That's the end of that's the role description. It's on the official page, the game link page that says you are melee. Don't read the rest. Just be sad when other people die and hit the boss. That's it. That's end list of responsibilities. Meanwhile, the healer one is like DPS and heal and manage GCDs and make sure you have cooldowns. Make sure to mitigate.
Are they gonna put that in our tooltips from now on?
And I'm just like mantra, and then I'm just. Do you need mantra? Warrior, you need don't worry. I know when you're inner releases. You guys need mantra or feint? No? The whole phase is magic damage. Great. I'll see you guys later. That's it for me. It's like, his auto attacks, they're all magic. So I'll just mantra whenever. Oh, you don't even really need that because you have your healing planned already. All right. Okay, I'm going to go back to what I was doing then. That's it. I'm honest about melee life. I'm honest about melee life.
I would say it's DPS.
Sounds like a monk problem more than anything, but
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. The other ones don't have to worry about mantra.
What about samurai? Ooh.
They really don't have to worry about. They still have feint. Hey, feint was high value this tier.
Oh God.
y'all are hating on the samurai dude. But you put a samurai 1v1.
no.
I saw
We
that.
saw the tweet.
I saw that fucking.
We saw the tweet.
I'm going and getting.
We saw
it
the
right
tweet,
now.
so we know what you really think about Sam's right now. Which, I mean, we're not going to argue against it, but at the same time, we're still going to meme on him a little bit.
Samurai versus Jill
reasons.
1v1.
Oh yeah, samurai versus jail. It's
Oh,
pretty good.
sorry. I tried control Fing to find the exact link, and it didn't work. So everyone just heard a big old fuck you on Windows. I'm just trying to find the exact Q&A where you fucking. I want to read it word for word. I mean, I can find tenacity as a valuable stat. Change my mind. I can find stuff about the World Cup. I can see every tweet except for the one where. Oh no, here it is. There you go. Here it is. Any jobs you feel are very strong / struggle in Ultima. And Klops' exact response was, Samurai is strong, in all caps. Expert jail snipers. Hit that some bitch with a Gurren Kaiten Madare Shinten, and it's a wrap. Also all exclamations. Tell your team to back off because that jail is yours. And what happens when the samurai gets jailed, Layla?
Swipe it. There's no hope. Like, the morale is gone at that point. Just pull the plug.
Oh God.
That's it. How did you feel typing that? Tell me how you really felt.
I'm just really excited to zone in as a samurai next week.
Which is Chia going samurai?
No, dude. I got the katana ready.
Oh no.
Ooh.
I want you to know it's not a tank by design.
She has been practicing his tank.
I'm gonna guess you're using your first reclear token as the katana. You did that already.
I was actually strongly considering using this week's token on a katana. I like the way that katana looks, man. And I already have the Dark Den, the Warrior, so I would be buying the Paladin this week. I'll probably bitch out and buy the Paladin, but week 4, that's a katana.
At least he's dedicated to them. If he's gonna say shit like hit that.
I play a lot of samurai actually. Like people don't know that I play a lot of samurai.
When you're gonna say things like hit that some bitch with a Gurren Kaiten Madare Shinten and it's a wrap, then yeah, I have to have a feeling you're willing to stand up for them a little bit. I look forward to seeing the Klops GG Samurai at FanFest.
I'll become fully clothed.
Yep.
Take pictures.
I'm not looking forward to it as much as you think I am. I'm just not. All right. Now I gotta get back on track. Because after reading that sentence, it stays with you. Okay. So, we've covered almost everything there is about Ultima. We've covered Garuda, Titan. Garuda and Ifrit. Titan's where I want to go next. Because he's kind of avoided every topic of conversation thus far, and he's probably the biggest asshole in the fight. I'm gonna ask you two how you feel about them jails, because I've got some emotions about those jails and I'm very willing to get those out, but I want to hear first thoughts, reactions, planning. How did those jails go down for you?
I'll let Zepp kick this one off.
Well, first of all, we actually went to bed. So when that was discovered how to do it, we figured it out from a stream and then catched up and went ahead. But I gotta say, while Garuda and Ifrit, for me personally, I like chill mode, where I usually like put on something on my second monitor and then, just chill for a bit. Those Titan jails, is that the only time where my heart rate goes up to like 200 beats per minute. And then I'm like, don't fuck this up, don't fuck this up, don't fuck this up, don't fuck this up.
I mean, I would go so far to say it's the most stressful part of the fight.
Yeah, I don't know. For me personally, that's the only part where I really get stressed. Because
it's one shot, right?
Yeah, you have like one shot. Well, I also did like from the wrong side at the start, and I'm doing it from the right side now. Basically, the way you get upheavaled and then you run back, you have the landslide slightly towards one of the sides, like left or right. And then you could either choose to go further, like towards the outside of the arena, or like stay on the inside. And if you're on the outer part, you kind of have to do like a ninja jump to make it back into that line. And if you miss that jump, you're gonna look like the biggest fucking retard.
I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, so that happened to me a lot at the start until I went from the other side, which was easier. But
so when you guys are dealing with that landslide, are you actually wanting to bait the landslide to the side, or are you wanting to bait it straight on?
We wanted to bait it on the side or like straight on. I don't know what we're doing now, but yeah.
So one of the big things with these jails is the use of ACT triggers for them. It seems like once everyone figured out that the jails were random between 7 people, one of the most common go-tos was some sort of arrangement with ACT, especially because apparently Garuda is responsible for 2 of those fucking things, and Titan's only responsible for 1 of them, for whatever fucking reason, according to the...
Just a coding thing, honestly.
Just a coding thing.
Just makes it easier for them.
Yeah. How do we feel about that? Because in UCOB, ACT ran rampant for Nail Van Darnus with the RP mechanics, obviously. So for this is the one mechanic that kind of the ACT triggers are kind of also used rampantly for. How do we feel about using them here versus using them back at the RP mechanic for Nail?
I personally did not use those triggers.
I didn't either. So, but how do you feel about it?
I mean, I don't know. I don't see them as that bad. Like, the nail triggers are way, quote unquote, worse, if you want to call that. Like, they impact the fight a lot more than those Titan jails, in my opinion, at least. So I don't feel that bad about them.
The ACT triggers, I think I agree with what he said. They're not as intrusive as the UCOB triggers that were out there. Some of the UCOB triggers were very intrusive to the fight. And they completely trivialized the nail RP mechanics. They some of the triggers available trivialized the octet dive bomb methodologies. The jail thing, it's one small part of the fight, and the triggers don't necessarily do the entire mechanic for you. What they do is they provide order to a situation that has no order, and then it's on you to respond accordingly and place the jails in the actual correct spot. With all that deflecting being said and whatnot, they came out with a statement after Prog saying that the fact that so many players felt that ACT was necessary for this mechanic tells us that we need to do a better job of restricting this kind of interaction in the future. So they're going to go out of their way, supposedly, to be able to make it more difficult for people to make these kinds of triggers. I support that. I think people only do it because it's available right now, and ACT has been such a staple in progression for so many years that it's almost become like a bad baseline for progging. But I think that they're not the ones for the jail specifically are not as intrusive as some of the stuff that we found in UCOB. Yeah.
I was just surprised that I read a lot about I read a lot of the JP responses. I was just surprised that they were really salty about it, I guess, about those Titan jail triggers, considering that the UCOB clear had like triggers for everything, and you can actually hear it as well.
I don't think that. So my understanding of that situation is, I actually don't think the mass populace is aware, and this is not to put Redsteele on blast or anything. I think that there's, misinformation about the I guess the pureness of the kills that happen. Players in the JP's World First Clear of UCOB, a lot of them had triggers. Players in a lot of top JP kills all use triggers. I feel like the mass populace in the JP community isn't actually aware of that, and they feel like it's a Western thing that's isolated to like the Western communities. But it's really like not the case. It is like a global baseline for rating right now. That and I'm not going to defend that and say that's a good thing, but that's the reality of the situation right now.
Yeah, people always ask me where my triggers are, and I go, I don't need those things.
I ain't no bitch. Fuck that. I ain't no bitch. No.
No, Ultima's my bitch. I ain't no bitch. Ultima's my bitch.
At the end of the day,
exactly.
like if Square Enix is able to mask their logs better than they currently are to restrict that kind of mobility and ease of access, then I don't think you'll hear many people against that. I think most raiders will say that less triggers probably makes it more fun. That being said, I will go on a bit of a mini rant. That if they're going to, discourage raiders from using things like ACT, some of their mechanics they should design better. Just gonna say it. I've said it. It's out there. The jail mechanic from a design standpoint is stupid. I'm just gonna be honest. It's dumb.
Okay.
And there's a reason why everyone defaulted to wanting to use a trigger for it, because it's stupid and it's volatile. It's a very precise movement and placement that you have to do with very, very, very little time to react and very little time to orchestrate 3 players. And if they want players to shy away from that stuff and not want to do that stuff, give players the time to consistently react and develop an actual strategy for reaction. Because right now, it's basically, if you don't use a trigger, it's dogpile the middle with your three jails. Hope that call out really quickly in comms, me front, me back. One player jumps forward, the other player jumps back, and you hope that you didn't call out over each other the same call, and you hope that you both didn't jump the same direction. There's a really cool also alternative that somebody brought up to me on stream earlier of using the macroed markers. Apparently, I don't know the actual syntax for it because I haven't investigated it myself. But apparently, you can mark players, and it automatically counts up just because of the way the marking system works. If you mark everybody at the same time, and it would actually create an order for you. I thought that was a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, you can do that. You can set it to mark each individual party slot with one specific marker. So you can set each play. Yeah, I mean that's I like to call that the good old Ramu extreme priority system.
If you were gonna shy away from triggers, that I think is definitely the best way to go about it. But I'm still gonna stand by my little mini rant of, if they don't want people to default to ACT, then design mechanics a little bit better.
I think it should have been
Okay.
either the start. When we saw them, we thought, okay, maybe this is only DPS. So we thought, okay, we do melee, ranged. And we saw, okay, healer has it as well. Okay, healer, deep melee, melee, ranged, healer. And then also tank could have gotten it. And we're like, okay, so if it was only DPS, I think this mechanic would have been fine, because then
if there was some order to the madness. But as it stands right now, really the only consistent way of getting through it without a trigger is the marking tactic that we're talking about. Which, for what it's worth, I actually really like that idea. But that's not necessarily something that is I mean, that's definitely not something I thought of when I was going through it.
I remember just thinking, I really hope this doesn't boil down to priority system like Ramu, where it's if you're 1, you're all... Listen, I was going to be 1, so I still would have had that melee privilege being fuck it, I'm closest to the boss, I'm 1, see y'all later, I'm out.
It's a very short amount of time to react. And even with the marked priority system, it's still a very short amount of time for you to get orderly and understand oh, I'm below him, he's above me. That means I go here. That means he goes there. It's just, yeah. I'll end my rant there.
No, because I want to dig a little bit deeper.
Okay, go ahead.
Now you bring up the jails, you bring up the RP mechanic in UCOB. Is there anything else that feels stupid enough to where you would need an ACT trigger for it that you would want to redesign personally?
You mean in anything else that isn't UCOB or UwU?
Yeah, just anything else. Because I'm curious. I'm really curious at this right now.
Nothing that wasn't as egregious as those two, honestly.
Okay.
And I don't ever think like the nail RP was super egregious. I think the reasoning for people's wanting to use ACT there is it trivialized it. Like it removed the entire like thought process from the fight. You just entirely removed that portion, that mechanical portion of the fight. I think that the jail is probably more what I would call an egregious example. And I'm struggling to think of something else in another encounter that's probably as egregious as the Titan jail.
The only thing I could think of, but you have sound cues for them if you have the sound effects on. I like the Goetia for this, but
even then, I mean, that's a pretty large sound cue. Like
yeah, like I'm just saying, like imagine if there was no sound cue, I could have
sure.
seen
If
that
there was no sound cue, it would be probably pretty dumb.
Or like for people that where the sound just randomly disappears.
Well, I actually play without sound. I actually play without sound effects on, but it locks your position like almost a full second before Garuda or the ads even jump. So even without the sound, like when I see the Wicked Wheels during the part right before Annihilation, I guess the second half of Predation is usually what I call it. When I see Tirana and Saparta doing Wicked Wheel, when they're done with the animation, they haven't even jumped yet, and I call the move because I know that they've already locked in their position. So I don't think that's as annoying of a spot, personally. I feel like that one's pretty easy to get around. I think the jails are a much more volatile example.
Yeah, it's just like at the start of the fight when you're not so familiar with it. Like only in these cases. By now, like everyone remembers the exact timings.
I just don't agree with triggers.
No.
Whenever people set them up, I'm like, nah, dude. Listen, when Nail RP came around and I was like, yo, give me a sentence, I guarantee you I know what it is. And then they'd be like Steel and Crimson. I'd be like, all right, it's this and this. It's like I will never come on your show and say that triggers are a good thing. I don't think they're a good thing. Well, you do it on your show, though.
No, I won't do it on my show. I legitimately don't think that they are the direction the game should continue because, well, let me clarify what I'm saying. The evolution of triggers is probably not good for the game because they're getting more and more sophisticated as fights go on.
Oh yeah, let's use the jails as an example. There's one that adds syntax that'll mark the players in the order that they go.
Well, that's what I've seen as well.
Yeah, I've seen people do that. Like that's on a whole other. I'm like, wait, what the? Why are you even playing the game at this point? Come on.
Things are getting very sophisticated, and they're going to get more sophisticated if left unchecked. So I do encourage and support SE sort of cracking down on that side of things, because some of the things that we enjoy about raiding will deteriorate over time if it's left to sort of blossom and evolve on its own.
Yeah, I just don't want to see it go. And chat just brought it up the same way that DBM became so centralized to everything in WoW, like to the point where they basically had to
become a DBM.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what I would also like, while we're already talking about decrypting the packages. Well, I personally have never read in World of Warcraft. I don't know if this is truth, but I just heard about it, that there are phases in World of Warcraft and fights that you cannot data mine because they are encrypted, and
yes,
the key to decrypt are given as you reach those phases. And I would appreciate if this was a thing in Final Fantasy as well. I don't know how difficult it would be for them to develop this.
Well, that's essentially what they're talking about looking into, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess no, they're specifically looking to the actual ACT.
The way, because they said that in the interview you're referencing, Layla, they specifically talk about how people are able to get chat notifications or text notifications via the parsing before the mechanic is visible even. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, that's been a big problem since turn 8, honestly.
Yeah, so that's something that was specifically the big thing they wanted to crack down on, is getting those notifications that then designing triggers. Yeah, but I wonder if it is. I wonder if it's something they've considered doing, is encrypting their data mining process, or if they think people are just going to go around it anyway, or find a way around it in some way.
I'm imagining a world where I didn't know that Brute Justice ever got wings, and that would have been an incredible progression moment for me. If we feel like we're about to kill Brute Justice, and obviously the fight timer would kind of tip us off that there's no way he's about to die here. But just seeing him go to full health and get wings, had I not known that was going to happen beforehand, would have been just a whole nother feeling of craziness. So I would really, really, really love them to sort of
So you want that mystery? Is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
You hear that, Yoshi P? Tell us less.
And it's like what Zeppe is saying. You find that in WoW. They're called mythic phases, and majority of mythic phases, with the exception of maybe a few abilities, are big mysteries for the entirety of progression. To my knowledge, I mean, I'm not involved in any world first prog in WoW, but I have done, sort of, I guess what you would call mid-core prog in WoW, and just server competition and stuff. And to my demographic there, it's just a whole mystery throughout prog, some of those mythic phases, and you don't really see them or even know that they exist until the world first video is released.
Yeah, I think back to an old World of Warcraft boss that I wish hadn't been spoiled before it was actually shown in a video, was Firelands Heroic Rag, Mr. Little Feet. Him growing feet and stepping out of the arena is not something anyone would have ever expected, but that was knowledge well in advance, months in advance of that encounter being released because of the data mining. So I think in situations like that, it's always more fun to just either see that stuff for the first time in a video because you're not someone who does the content, or to see it yourself because you made it there. And I agree. All right, I'm down. I'll you know what? Let's forward that to Yoshida. Let's be like, yo, can you just start encrypting shit so people stop data mining it as much? I'm sure if in an interview someone brought up the fact that people had been data mining shit like the Woken status and whatnot. I don't know if that's how people figured it out or if that's how everyone figured it out, but it became a rampant topic of how did people figure this out? And they go, well,
actually, from our team at least, that we knew that it existed, yes, but that just A, you see it on the boss itself, the buff at least, and B, you had no the descriptions of them were completely mysterious. So even if you knew that they existed, you didn't actually know what they do. So for us, it was not because of data mine that we knew, okay, we need to awaken them. No, that was not the case. We just saw, okay, so the boss gets these stacks. What happens if we give him more stacks? And then we saw, okay, they get awakened.
From the data mining, though, you see the stacks, and then you see an ability that is separate from the stacks, and I mean, you can tell how many stacks you can even get. So, this just outlines the strength of data mining abilities and stuff, and a reason why it happens so much in progression, and probably why it's it would be nice if it wasn't there, because it would keep the surprise a little bit more. But before you're even zoning into the fight, how many stacks of awakening you probably need to get to that mysterious buff. You don't really know what happens when you get there, but you know how many you need to get there. And that is it's such a massive tell to what you need to do. And if somehow they can encrypt their shit better to eliminate the possibility of that, it can only be a positive.
I agree. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're starting to get a little bit late on the clock. I know Layla and I both have separate raid nights that will come eventually, and we've rambled on for about an hour and 45. So there's what?
I said.
I have.
Sorry, no worries.
Go ahead.
I was going to go into a topic that has to be talked about, but I'm curious what you were going to say, Slyh.
If your topic is us not getting ultimate,
that was the exact topic. That was
great minds think alike.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Yes, they do. Slyh, then would you like to do the honors since you started talking first?
Yeah. So I have an opinion about this. I'll let y'all go first, but I've pretty much seen the forums, I've pretty much seen Reddit, I've seen tweets, but I'll let you get it out in the air and out in the open. How do you feel about not getting ultimate for the rest of Stormblood? Mike.
Thanks for picking me, Professor.
No
First
problem.
of all, I want to say I've seen some separate translations from a variety of different interviews that still make the wording of this ambiguous and not so crystal clear that it's no ultimate in 4.5. It seems more along the lines of they only have 3 designers and they don't know exactly what the next one's going to be. So it's just like there's almost no planning phase done. So I've seen conflicting translations and I'm taking nothing as fact at this point. So what I'll express is my emotion under the pretense we will not have an ultimate in 4.5. My response is initially, damn, that sucks. And that's pretty much it, because I know right now that if they aren't planning a 4.5 one and they aren't going to start developing it, it's too late in the dev cycle for it to happen, even if we request it. At this point, it'd be more about making sure it doesn't happen come the 5.x series where we don't go 5.5 into whatever and not get one there. So I'm of the opinion that in terms of viewership on external platforms such as Twitch, I see a lot of people coming over from other MMOs for the first time, seeing this content, wondering if this was a game they could get into, and then this is the jumping point for them to really get in, for them to see there's something like this waiting for me. And I think from a marketing standpoint, even if it's for just 1% of the player base, I'd say that the amount of the player base that interacts with the content, both internally in the game and externally through websites such as YouTube, Twitch, etc., is so much higher than that, probably more than the number of people who actually log in to do their fucking expert, because nobody really does it, let's be fucking honest. So I think that having one every odd number patch, especially when you're trying to fill the lull, waiting for an expansion, you want people to be excited and have an idea of what top end gameplay looks like before a new expansion comes out, before people are considering, oh, a new expansion coming out, I wonder if I should get into that game. I think it's vital for the health of the game to have that. So I really want one at 4.5, as much as I don't think it's going to happen, even with the conflicting information. I want it, and I want them to continue every odd-numbered patch. And no more than that. Just the one. I don't want any more. I just don't want them to stop that trajectory.
I was my first impression was I woke up, saw the message, and was like, oof, not good. Like, I felt really bad about it. I didn't like it. And my second reaction was, who and what community are they referring to that is claiming an ultimate fight every 8 months is too much?
It seems more that they were implying that because they only have 3 developers that are qualified for it, when they said the feedback, it's more internally. That was my interpretation of it, because with only 3 people being qualified, it starts to stretch them thin a little bit as to who can actually do what if they're already signed to other things.
I mean, what if you put all of these 3 on one ultimate?
I think you can't have... That's like having three head chefs in a kitchen. I don't think that works.
Okay, maybe 2.
That's still... You need 1 head chef and a team under them. Like, you need 1 person in charge, because if you have 3 people calling the shots, then you're going to have 3 different fights in one fight, but like not in a cohesive way.
But yeah, and then I was also surprised because I very clearly remember an interview, I think it was after 4.11 or shortly before 4.2, where they did speak, like they teased that there's an ultimate coming in 4.3 and they're developing it right now, and that they are already having plans for the ultimate in 4.5.
I remember that.
I remember that as well. And now they're saying they don't even have something planned. They don't even have like any fights or like what they would do. And I'm not sure like what to believe. did they lie to us early on, or are they lying up to us now?
I almost feel like they may have looked at how many encounters could reasonably have an ultimate and went, we might be going through these a little too fast. Because the truth of the matter is, there are not as many encounters in this game that can be made into ultimates as people might otherwise think. I've heard people say, well, where's Ramuh, Shiva, Moggle, Mog, and Leviathan? It's like, why the fuck would there ever be an ultimate with those 4 in them? There's nothing, there's no relation to each other between the 4. You know, I've seen people suggest taking Gilgamesh and Ultros. I've even had that suggestion before. And it's like, yeah, but can you really put that on the same scope of epicness as Ultima and Bahamut? You take a joke like Gilgamesh and turn him into, like, there's always got to be a plot. And I'm wondering if they're concerned about how often they introduce plots that can actually become ultimate encounters and how quickly they'll go through them.
That's kind of what I wanted to ask. Like, how would people feel if we got an ultimate fight that does not have the same epicness in it? Like, if, like, let's imagine Ultima wasn't Ultima and it was like, I don't know, it was Gaius. Okay. Because, well, it was like, I don't know, it was Shiva. The same mechanics, just Shiva. No RP, no nothing.
Just
Would
like
people still
mega
liked
hard.
it? Yeah. I think I would have still liked it. But maybe Twitch wouldn't have liked it as much. I'm not sure. But I think they could potentially make any fight into Ultimate if people do not mind that it necessarily means you will lose epicness.
And I think I think that would need to be a different category, because making an ultimate of just one encounter, you pretty much end up having to invent a lot of new stuff. Whereas the current ultimates, they absolutely create new things, or the way that they interact with us is new to some degree, but it is mostly, hey, I remember exactly how this worked in that fight. Now it's being applied to in a much more aggressive and complex way. Ultimate's all about saving resources or reusing resources, and I feel like to do one boss standalone, you kind of lose that ability. You have to really create a lot of new things for them.
I mean, what I've been hoping, or what I could see them potentially doing in the future, is, well, I mean, of course, this is just a crazy fantasy, but I was thinking maybe in 4.4 we do not actually fight Omega, and then in 4.5 we would have fought Omega as an ultimate. And I would have liked that idea, I would have loved it. But what I could see them do as well is make the final fight slightly easier and then make that as an ultimate again in the next patch. So they
second coil Savage style.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. So we, instead of God Kefka Savage, we would have God Kefka Ultimate, where the Kefka phase and the God Kefka phase are both like one fight without a checkpoint, for example.
Layla, we haven't let you speak at all. How are you feeling?
You said there's no ultimate in 4.5?
Yes.
Well, sorry, I couldn't really hear the conversation over this login music for another game.
I recognized the World of Warcraft login music immediately. I was like, is that...
Oh, wow.
Was that what I think it was?
Wow.
I'm glad that you took all this time to prepare that.
I think it's really, really, really disheartening, like everybody said, for there to be no Ultimate in 4.5. Obviously, Ultimate has done so much good for the game, so much good for rating. It finally gave rating a set of difficulties that don't alienate different portions of the player base, which I thought was kind of, which was obviously not just what I thought, which was obviously occurring in Heavensward. There was always one group of players that was being alienated in their rating demographics, and Ultimate circumvented that. It finally gave the hardcore players what they wanted, and it gave the non-hardcore players what they wanted. And for us to not have any of that in 4.5, you've once again alienated a portion of your player base. So I'm of the mindset that at this point, I don't care if they give us an encounter that doesn't match up to UCOB or Ultima. At least it gives us something. I think that I don't think that they would do that, because I think presentation is important to them, and I think that they're not going to want to half-ass content, because their content it sells their game. somebody watching it on Twitch, they're going to want what they're watching to be epic. They're going to want it to be something that would interest them in playing. And Ultimate Weapon and UCOB both do that. So while I want that to happen, I don't think that would happen. If they don't do an Ultimate in 4.5, I think the only thing that I would really hope that they would do beyond that is just give us something else to do. Savage is not going to be enough. I'm going to predict right now that the 4-4 Savage tier is going to be cleared in another day. It's going to be a single big tier again. Bold prediction, I know. But if you take that in consideration, for the next 1.5 years, we have 1 day tiers to look forward to. You're going to tell me that you can keep your hardcore player base, invested in the game with the current formula for content releases, doing that? If they redact Ultimate from 4.5, there is going to need to be something else. And it doesn't have to even be a raid. If they want to just give us something to do, and people are tired of hearing me preach it, but if they want to even give us some more interesting light party content that's difficult, at least it will give us a reason to log in every day and play and challenge ourselves every day. Because right now, preparing for 1 day tiers for the next 1.5 years is not something that I myself am very interested in.
I hear you there. Well, then I'm assuming you're definitely ready to go through day 1 for Heaven on High then.
Oh, I'm in, dude. I love light party content. I'm locked in. Alarm clock, Heaven on High. Let's go.
Did you catch what he had to say about the difficulty of 31 through 100?
I did, and I'm highly skeptical. So
I'm skeptical too, but it's still it's at least decent to hear. I at least like seeing him acknowledge that 180 to 200 was the only part everyone liked of Palace of the Dead. Nobody was like, oh yeah, 101 to 179. Oh, so that's great. I love it so much. I can't. I love doing 51 to 100 before that too. It's great. It's great every time.
What would also be nice is if they would make 5.0, like the expansion, release it with an ultimate. I think that could potentially still satisfy people if they don't give us one in 4.5.
I would back that, and I would be satisfied by it if I ever thought it plausible.
Yeah, I was gonna go down that route. I was like, yeah, you say that, but the odds of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
there's glass half full, there's glass full, and then there's glass empty. The glass doesn't even exist. The glass doesn't even exist for that possibility. Right. I feel.
I would welcome it though. Sure.
Yeah,
my whole thing is with getting another ultimate is the same fear that a lot of you probably had with UwU is that it wouldn't stand up to UCOB. And now that it's been done 2 times, the fear is a little bit more prevalent. And we've gotten to the point where, they're running down the list of content and you're afraid to see them, just mush things together for the sake of really ultra hard content. And I don't want to see that happen. So while I do, I completely understand everyone. Yes, it like not having ultimate for 4.5 would be somewhat detrimental. It wouldn't break the game. That's my whole thing. Like, it's not going to break the game.
Absolutely not.
But at the same time,
definitely not going to kill their game.
It's not going to
kill a portion of their player base.
Yeah,
it would. No, I do agree with that. But like, there's a bit of trepidation there with it, coming in 4.5. Like, there's a lot of trepidation for me that it just would not live up to your expectations. You would get something completely rushed. Again, this is the first time, like, this is the first expansion we've seen content like this. We didn't see this in Heaven's Ward. We definitely didn't see this in The Realm Reborn. It was just, Inception. So, like, while I do understand where you're coming from, I'm a bit forgiving in the fact that, they've had how long to think this up? And while it does seem easy on paper for them to think this up, and like we dream of it all the time, we talk about it all the time on the show. What's going to be in the next Ultimate? What are they going to include? What mechanics are they going to include? And you could really go back to, just doing level sync, item level sync stuff, and maybe kind of figure it out. Like them having to do that every so often patches. Is that something they should be getting used to, let alone we should be getting used to?
It's a standard that they advertised, and if that's our expectation, it's entirely their doing. They set us up for this. They gave us this expectation. If this is not the expectation that they intended, then they shouldn't have sold it as such. I think that. I don't like to use this side of the argument, but this is a reality, and it would be important to not be ignorant to this reality. In 2 months' time, Battle for Azeroth launches, and that is a direct competitor to Final Fantasy XIV. They're going to be in contention with a titan on the MMO market, and the proposed, we don't know what they have planned for 4.5, but the proposed content drought from 4.4 to 5.0 will be the longest of any content droughts, because that's how expansion leading up to expansions always is. The lead up to an expansion is always longer than any other lead up to a patch. And if we have nothing to look forward to from 4.4 to 5.0, there is a hot new car on the market in a giant competitors from a giant competitor that a lot of people are going to be looking at and messing around with. Not all, because WoW is not for everyone. There are plenty, if not the majority, of the Final Fantasy player base that hates and detests World of Warcraft. But I cannot sit here and say that there will not be people that play this game that leave if there's nothing to do from 4.4 to 5.0. So
I would say the same. I'm going to honestly say the same if we actually do get an Ultimate. Like, there's going to be a percentage that jump over.
I don't disagree.
Like, I'm not going to kill myself.
I just think it would be aggravated.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. One of the big things with, I guess, comparing World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV in this case is it starts to not just be becoming about one ultimate encounter. You start to look at kind of the grander picture. You see like 7 boss raids, 13 boss raids, 11 boss raids, and Mythic Plus, and the people who want to play the same game constantly look at that and go, well, that's going to hold my attention a lot longer. So if they are going to do something that's not ultimate, it like Layla said, needs to be something that's worth logging in on the daily to do, something that advances you in some way, something that gives you a sense of accomplishment. And we've been asking for it, and I know it's copy pasta from another game, but the Mythic Plus is a great idea in terms of what you can do with light party content. I have a feeling that you can do other things like speedrunning leaderboards. You have shit like the Feast leaderboards and whatnot with, that, and then they have regional championships, and then why can't we do like speedrunning leaderboards and shit like that for dungeons and time trials and stuff that reuses other stuff, and then maybe have the option to crank numbers up or down. Just literally present the same content with like sliders and shit.
Right. And I'll be the plus minus here. Like the Final Fantasy XIV community has done a really good job and been a really good proponent of creating content where there's almost nothing there. And like, I kind of feel like once we do hit that void, yes, we will get some of that, but that won't be enough. So I am for another Ultimate, but I'm just saying, in case we don't get it, don't be surprised, but there's probably going to be something else out there. That's all I'm saying.
The other reality you have to accept is when 4.4 launches, you will have many raiders, many mid-core raiders that are going to attempt to clear this, and they will probably do this within 1 or 2 weeks. And let's pretend there's an ultimate. Everyone that plans to do this ultimate has to stay subscribed to the game and clear the 3rd installment on a weekly basis. There's no way around this. like because there's no crafted gear or anything that you could go with into the 4.5 Ultimate. And I can tell from my own experiences that in Heavensward at least, in 3.5 or like after 3.4 after clearing Alexander, I've seen many people quit. And they came back in Stormblood, of course, but they did quit in this time between 3.4 3.5. And I've seen this also happen in 3.3 and 3.1, where people cleared the raid, and then after they reached this after 8 weeks, or maybe a bit longer, they did not stay subscribed. And I think this is a problem. That is probably going to happen again if they do not implement an Ultimate 4.5.
See, where we see it as a problem, though, Yoshida has very often expressed that it's not. It's by design that players feel free to go play something else. They don't feel tied down and chained to a single title. So I guess that becomes a question. Well, we were constantly looking at it from that outlook of keeping subscribers. He's like, no, it's fine. You can just go play that, because when the next Ultimate comes out, I know exactly where you're going to think to be.
That's fair. I mean, if that's true and that's his outlook on it, then
it's been his outlook since the 2.x days, when people were asking, why can't you do this? It's like, maybe we release these, because I think it was the question like back in 2.1 where there's like, there's these extreme primals, and then but there's no real increase to item level, so players maybe don't feel like logging in or subscribing. And then he goes, that's perfectly fine. It's always here waiting for you. Pay for your subscription when there's something you like. Don't pay for it when there's something you don't like. That's consumers. He just seemed like content with the idea, pretty much.
Play devil's advocate with myself even. I'm the example of the person that you're referencing. Like, there were very few raid tiers where I didn't take a break between tiers. I took a break in 2.1. I took a break, a little bit less so of a break in 2.3 because they had second close savage. Then I took a break in 2.5 before 3.0. So I mean, and I've always come back. So I mean, maybe there is something to the madness there. I just know that this is the only MMO that has behaved that way for me. I've never really taken long breaks in between content and felt the need to do so. So maybe that's why it's a bit appalling to me.
It would also make it the only MMO where you've taken a long break but still been so compelled to come back.
There you go. You could argue that way.
I guess, and the other thing is, it's just sad if you think about it. Like, the content is just so good that even considering all of the other issues that they might bring, like people unsubscribing or jumping to another game, it's just that you're just sad that they don't bring another one, because it's just so good in general. It's so good for the game. It's just I don't think anyone has had more fun doing these fights ever before, like in any other fight. And at least for me personally. And it's just kind of saddening if you know that there's nothing coming for such a long time. It's like waiting for the next Game of Thrones season, for example. You're like, no, okay, I will be there.
Don't remind me, dude.
Like, okay, I will be there 100%. Like, I'm hyped as fuck, but that time in between, oof, that's long. It's gonna be hard. So yeah. I think that just people are just sad.
And I think that's fair. And if you're someone who is sad, luckily over on the official forums, there's a post with a bunch of names of some hardcore raiders that decided to throw up a thread about the Ultimate hiatus and publicly express it, and ask that other people who have opinions on it comment on the thread as well. So I'm going to throw that in the chat real quick, and I'll throw it in the YouTube comment section as well. That if you're someone who I think you need to log in, you need to have logged into the game in the last 14 days to comment on the forums.
2 weeks.
Yeah, so if you're someone who's logged in the past 2 weeks and you want to comment on the forums about how you feel about the Ultimate hiatus, please do so in a reasonable and well-spoken manner. I don't want somebody to be like, yo, Mr. Happy sent me here, and I just want to say, y'all dumb. I don't want to see
don't turn it to Reddit.
Y'all fucking stupid.
don't turn it to Reddit. These are the forums. I mean, while they seem like a little bit similar, don't turn it to fucking Reddit, please.
While you're at it, do not just comment, but also click on that like button. They care a lot about that like button.
Right.
It's at the bottom right, above quote. Is this thumbs up? Click this. Very important.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll include that in the YouTube section. I know on Twitch chat, people are probably like, wait, can you relink that? But now when I say like, favorite, subscribe, and share, I also mean that thread. No matter what happens with that thread, I think 4.5 is a done deal. If they've said that it's not happening, it's not happening. I think it's too late in the dev cycle. Whether or not they have something else planned, who the hell knows? But I think it's more about getting that set in place for the 5.x series at this point, so that it doesn't happen again. That's my personal outlook.
That's just like your opinion, man.
Layla, what the hell did you do to your voice to get that loud all of a sudden?
It was yelling at.
Jesus Christ! You went from being like a 3 to an 11.
I may have tweaked something.
Thank you.
I think. Wow.
All right. So with that, unless there's anything else that you guys want to say, I know I'm already past the time. I saw a couple of eyes emojis in the chat coming from my raid group in the Twitch chat. By the way, don't do that. I'm in the middle of a show. But anyway, and I know Layla's got something soon. So unless there's if there's any closing thoughts you guys want to give, then I'd give them now. As then we're going to do a sponsor list, let you guys shout out where people can find you, and then we'll wrap things up.
One thing is, why am I not able to dismantle the primals in the final phase of Ultima?
By design, man.
That's the worst design ever. Really.
Okay. Is there any other closing thoughts?
Machinist is bad.
It keeps them up at night.
Ow.
Are there any other closing thoughts?
Fuck Waffle House.
I let Layla have a closing thought.
I really, really, really hope that if we don't get Ultimate, we at least get something. I love light party content. Give me something related to dungeons, please.
Okay. Is that it? Are we done with closing thoughts?
Yeah, that's the only thing that
Mike,
actually matters.
do you have any closing thoughts? It sounds like you have a closing thought.
No, I'm just making sure we're getting the closing thoughts out of the way.
Okay. All right.
I just pour all my thoughts out. So.
Okay. All right.
Nerf Warrior.
Fuck Waffle House.
Buff Machinist.
I'm a monk.
Entirely.
So we're pretty happy right now. We're fairly happy right now. Just saying. Okay, so with that, we're gonna let these two shout out where you can find them at. Sly and I will do it too. I'm gonna thank the sponsors, then we'll wrap up the show. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right, Klops, not Layla, even though I called you Layla the whole show out of habit. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you at and some of the things that you got fun going on working? What are you doing?
You can find me on US Sargeras on Alliance. I go by the name Klops over there, Brewmaster. You can add me, my battle tag on Battle.net. You can find me on Twitter at the normal place, KlopsGG. And I can see your distaste with me right now. On Twitch. I have twitch.tv/KlopsGG. And I'm going to wrap up before Mike kills me.
No, I'm actually smiling about something completely different because Mel just wants to know if you still use a shitty keyboard, if you finally gotten a real one yet.
I actually... Oh, is she talking about my Dell keyboard?
Yeah,
So
Layla Dell.
No, Layla Dell is actually dead. I have a keyboard that Rinchian, my old bard, gave me shortly after Creator that I'm still using to this day. And it's like entirely yellow, just like his character and everything in his life. So I'll take a picture of it and put it on Twitter.
It's a honey yellow?
Yeah.
Me would be proud.
Close. It's basically honey yellow, yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure of that. All right. Thank you for answering that question on your outro. All right. And next up we have Zepp and his as he described a weeb ass picture when he sent it to me. So where can they find you at, Zepp?
You can find me on Twitter at Zeppe and you can find me on Twitch /Zeppe899. And if you ever find me in game, you can send me a tell or add me. I'm up for anything.
There you go. And now someone who's a little bit more regular. My girlfriend says she loves your voice. She thinks it's very good for ASMR, by the way.
Yeah.
Zepp?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Ooh. Ooh.
How do you feel about that? Ooh. Ooh.
Ooh.
Maybe
balance
maybe
that
you can get some
room.
ASMR Twitch streams from you, Zepp, maybe?
Sure.
Sure.
You heard it first, Mel. There you go.
There you go. You can enjoy that. I can't wait to wake up 11:30 in the evening and my girlfriend's just listening to Zepp talk. What are you doing, babe? Nothing.
Nothing.
I mean,
Not a
nothing.
damn. None of your business.
There you go. All right. Now that we can stop talking about my girlfriend creeping on Zepp, how about we talk about you instead, Slyh? Where can they find you at?
You can find me on twitch.tv/Slyh, aka Greyfox. You can find me on Instagram at Slyh, aka Greyfox07, Twitter at Slythefox, YouTube.com/The Velvet Room. I'm taking a day off this week to finally work on that goddamn timeline vid that you all asked for. You're welcome. Now, where can they find you at, Mike?
You can find me, Mr. Happy127, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all those places. It's pretty easy to find. And yeah, I'm now on the Octopath waiting period in terms of just waiting for Octopath to come out. So that's what I'm doing with my life right now. So be on the lookout for some more stuff regarding the prologue demo and some stuff that you can use when the full game comes out, including a quick speedrun of getting all 8 characters in the demo before the 3-hour time limit finishes, which has already been done by a lot of people. It's not super hard to do apparently, but I can't wait to make a video for that one. And then with that, before our guests get going, we're going to do a quick shout out for our sponsors over on Patreon. They've been supporting the channel through #demonetized for the past God knows how many months over on YouTube. And we have quite a few of them on this list. We have our patron of light up first, Khuja Cross, the Avon FC on Jenova. On the normally I have the picture up, but I think I'll just edit it in on the YouTube side. He sent me a new one, and I saw it while I was in the middle of the show, so it's not really set up. It's like, actually, no, that's not true. I should have it set up, but I'll get it set up before we actually are at the end of the sponsor list. But then we have the rest of our sponsors. We have our standard sponsors right here. We have Shadow Link on the Tonberry server. We have Dom, Suka Wake from the Jenova server, Lemilionella of Midgard's Armor, Serren the Avalanche family on Malboro, Jenova Yatia, Narek of Clan Vizsla, Kifca and the Great Eagles on Exodus, Dark Graver, Kadeyoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rah Xephon from Exodus, Rylanator, Westaur, the Purple Warrior, Eadric Redsteele, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiark, Sour Cream and Chives from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Goetia Valefar of Siren, Hersh Fersh of Faerie, Phoenix Down FC on Goblin, and Serren from Zodiark. We also have our elite sponsors. We have, I lost track of myself there, Kano Zuki on Jenova. We have Westaur on Coral, Sathal, Sour Frost from Behemoth, Diablo, Holy Tabasco, Red Thorn, Asura, Kernai Oni, Askenhawk, Oscar, Crash015, Mustang, Serenity FC on Ultras, Cat Kazuma, Serial Kira, and the Reckless Tea Party on Cactar. We have Ignis Fairgun from Diablos, Celestial Fanfront, Noct Cordis from Excalibur, Corvus Moonscar, Private Mikey, Spike, Nadia Kirasami, Rudy Rudiger, Tin Colossus, Killer Hackman, Rawl Jr., Remiel Gaming, and Killtastic Jones. And I had spent all that time reading, and thus I didn't actually get to look at I didn't actually get to update the image, even remotely. Although it shouldn't take me more than a second here to get the most recent one. Well, I like the last one. There you go. There you go. They represent samurais too, Layla. Just, our patron of light is very much a samurai enthusiast, just like you, Layla.
Don't forget to subscribe to twitch.tv/Faros. Support the Samurai Dream.
There you go. Look at that. Look at that extra shout out.
The shout out, though. Let's go.
The shout out for the samurai. There you go. That's how proud he is of the samurai heritage, I suppose. There you go. And look, he already is subscribed to Faros, Layla.
There you go.
Step ahead of you. All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this show. I know you got to get going in a few minutes, and my raid group's busy like, yo, what the fuck are you doing, when they know I do this show every week. So thank you again for joining us. We're going to go into a very short post-show before we wrap things up, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll see you next week, not on Tuesday, because I have something else to do. So it's going to be like Monday or Thursday next week. So we'll let you know on Twitter.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, it'll be about like all the interviews and shit. Like we know the topic, but you gotta wait. Right. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week. Until then, take care.
See you next week.
Oh, the outro is not updated either, but I updated this. That's not fair. Here, hold on. We're gonna fix this right now. We're fixing it right now. All right, I updated it before the show started, and that one just didn't. Look at that. Now it's updated. That's beautiful right
there. Yay!
I updated that. I fixed the audio issue with OBS, and now we got that. But I fixed it. You're Gucci. All right. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining. You're free